Greetings, everyone. Welcome to your Astro-Weather Check for tomorrow's Jupiter-Uranus conjunction and also for our Scorpio full moon next week on Tuesday. I hit record right around 11 a.m. on Friday, April 19th here on the East Coast in Atlantic City, New Jersey. So just for reference on the time check, the sun shifted into the sign of Taurus about an hour ago in Eastern time, so around 10 a.m. So we are now officially in Taurus season. So that might feel, usually it's a really grounded feeling, but this time around, and we'll get into it just momentarily, we have the planets Jupiter and Uranus coming together in the sign of Taurus. So this one might not feel as grounded as usual. So we'll cover that. A couple other things I want to talk about with the astro weather. We'll share the chart and we'll look at the chart for Tuesday's full moon and a couple other things I want to share about that. And then we'll wrap it up for today. I want to keep it kind of short and sweet this time around. I'm feeling a little tired today. So it's been a very busy week and the energies have just been very wild. I'm sure that everyone that is tuning in can relate. And just as a reminder, this is a video episode, which you can find on our Sea Goddess Healing Arts YouTube, as well as in my podcast feed on Spotify. If you're listening on an audio-only platform like Apple Podcasts, I will do my best to describe what we're seeing in the chart and everything that I'm doing screen share wise to the best of my ability. So in case you're not able to watch the video, I'll do my best to talk about everything on point for that. And then after we look at the chart and talk about the full moon, we'll cover a couple other things. We have some planetary shifts coming next week and towards the end of the month. And then I'll pull us a dragon card as our full moon on Tuesday will be closing out this first wild eclipse season of 2024. So we'll see what the dragons have to say about that. So like I said, tomorrow is a very big deal. It's one of the biggest things happening astrologically this year in 2024. Jupiter and Uranus will be coming together. They've been kind of inching together for several months now at this point, but the exact conjunction will be tomorrow around 10 p.m. in the sign of Taurus at 21 degrees. So this is roughly 14-year cycle. The last time these two planets came together was in the sign of Pisces in January of 2011. So think back to that time and what might have been happening in your life then, and now fast forward to what's happening now. Jupiter, just as a reminder, is a planet that relates to our sense of optimism, expansion, generosity. It's kind of usually called the Santa Claus of the zodiac. So Jupiter is a really good energy, but Jupiter does kind of work in mysterious ways because that expansion of our consciousness and broadening of our horizons and all of that and our ascension process is a choice. So you have to be willing and wanting to show up and do that work. So just remember that with these two coming together. And also just a reminder, Uranus is the planet that brings surprises. And it's akin to Prometheus. So there's a humanitarian element with Uranus as well. And it's the revolutionary. It's the planet that relates a lot to our sovereignty and our liberation. I've talked a lot about Uranus as I've been doing all of these astro weather checks in my podcast episodes. As many of you know, if you've been listening to me for a while, you know that I'm in the thick of my Uranus opposition, which happens for everybody around age 40. 42, 43 is when it really comes into the exactness of it. So that is sort of what set me off on this whole path that I'm on now in my life, as my personal revolution started pretty much when Uranus shifted into the sign of Taurus back in May of 2018. So we've had Uranus and Taurus for several years now at this point. Uranus will exit, I believe, next year. So that energy should be pretty familiar to all of us now on the world stage and everything with our food systems and finances and all the stuff that the collective experience as well as the personal experience. So Uranus has been going through a certain part of everyone's chart now since 2018. If you have placements in Taurus, kind of like me with being a Taurus rising, that's why I say it's a personal revolution. You know how it's been affecting you and what it's been bringing up for you and how that area of your life has been touched in some way by the Prometheus experience and a revolution, like I said, but also kind of a liberation in some way or big transformation in some way. So that is the gist of it pretty much. The exactness, like I said, is tomorrow, and then they'll separate. And Jupiter will shift on into Gemini, I believe, next month. So we've had Jupiter in Taurus for roughly a year. So Jupiter spends roughly a year in every sign. So we'll have Jupiter moving on after this. I'm pretty sure that both of them will be pretty involved in the new moon, the Taurus new moon that's coming in May, and that's when I'll be back with the next Astro-Weather Check. So just pay attention to what's happening, what's been happening roughly the last couple months as they've been inching closer together, how this has transformed your life in some way, or you personally in some way, whatever Taurus is in your chart, pay very close attention to that space. If you don't know your chart, I'd be happy to work with you. As I mentioned, I love, love, love doing one-on-one astrology readings. That's one of my services. That's one of my passions. So I'd be happy to help you out with where this conjunction is happening for you if you don't know. So I will put links to all that in the episode notes, as I usually do, to my services page. So that is that for tomorrow. And then, whenever two planets come together, the energies just kind of fuse and they influence each other. So this is a very, Uranus also brings things that are surprising or unexpected. So I've seen a lot of descriptions related to this as like breakthroughs. Uranus is like the god of lightning. So just like things that are divine insights or things that are just surprise insights or something like that. So like I said, just pay very close attention. So there's some kind of expansion of our revolution or liberation that these two, like I said, fuse. So the energies come together and then they'll move on after tomorrow. So that is Jupiter, Uranus in a gist. And it's, like I said, relatively rare, 14-year cycle. So they don't come together very often. So we have that tomorrow. And then on Tuesday, let's take a look at the chart for this, because I think it's important. This is a really big full moon that's coming. This is our chart for the Scorpio full moon, which is on Tuesday night, evening, I guess you could say. 7:47, 7:48 p.m. here on the East Coast in Atlantic City, New Jersey. And lo and behold, as if our eclipse season and everything with the Pluto energy this year, Pluto shifting again into Aquarius back in January, we have a square to Pluto for this full moon. So let's break this down. I'm trying to move my toolbar. Hang on, bear with me 1 second. Okay. So Pluto sitting here at now 2 degrees of Aquarius in the very, very, very early stages of this, still the sign, but also the dance that it's still doing this year. We've covered this between Aquarius and late Capricorn. It'll drop back in September and then secure itself fully in Aquarius for the next 20 years in November of this year. So as you can see, we have our full moon. So sun at 4 degrees of Taurus, moon at 4 degrees of Scorpio, and Pluto at 2 degrees of Aquarius. So that is a T-square, what's known as a T-square. So when we have 2 planets in opposition and then one other planet or other planets forming a 90-degree angle to the planets that are opposing each other, that is a T-square. So let's see how it looks like a T. So that, as we talked about many, many times throughout these Astro-Weather Checks and on the podcast, squares force us to act in some way if we choose to. So we have the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction happening a few days before this intense full moon. And it's, the sun's still in Taurus at this point. And it is going to feel gritty. That's the way I usually describe squares. So this is a really good opportunity to work with this in 2 ways. One, what I think, is to really dive into the Pluto energy. This sun doesn't square Pluto very often. It's only roughly twice a year. The moon squares Pluto once a month. So that energy is usually pretty familiar. But this brings up things from the depth. The tagline I think I'm giving this full moon is going to be, your inner pink lotus, the pink lotus specifically for a reason, which I'll get to. So we have an opportunity here to really dive deeply into the transformative energy of Pluto. And when we talk about the sun in a square to Pluto, that is definitely bringing up our sense of self, our identity, our consciousness in some way. And the moon on the other side with the fullness, just a culmination of the energy now. Think back to 6 months ago when the moon was new in Scorpio, back in November 13th of 2023. What's culminating now? Really think about this whole last month and a half-ish with our eclipse season and what's come up. It's been a very, very, very transformative eclipse season. I will put some links to the last few episodes that I've done about the eclipses, and a lot has come up, a lot has come to the surface, a lot of things that were hidden, more shadowy things have really, really culminated and been brought to our attention, been brought to light for review process. Remember, we've had Mercury retrograde since April 1st, and that will be until the 25th. So it's been a very just intense time of things coming up for us to look at them and analyze them and see where we have the opportunity to work with it, but also to release. The first eclipse that we had in Libra, that was a very big opportunity to release things that were disturbing our peace. Relationships came to the surface big time with that full moon, with that lunar eclipse, the first one that we had on March 25th. So it's just been a really, really, really intense time. Collectively, also, think about what's going on the world stage. So there's a lot that goes into this. With Scorpio, we're always talking about our deepest, most intense feelings and emotions. There's always an opportunity there to alchemize and transmute with Scorpio energy, then the highest vibration. That's what Scorpio is really all about. The moon in Scorpio is not its favorite place to be. The moon is said to be exalted in the sign of Taurus. So when it's opposite, it's said to be in fall, quote unquote. So there's a way to work with this that is going to challenge us a little bit, not only with the square, but because the moon's in Scorpio. So Pluto is also the modern ruler of Scorpio. So Pluto is the modern ruler of this full moon. Mars is the traditional ruler. Mars is still in Pisces. So not functioning at its highest right now. It's kind of, its fire is being put out a bit and has been since it's been in Pisces. It's coming closer to the planet Neptune, which I always feel whenever Mars and Neptune come together, just exhaustion. It's just like, okay, I don't really want to do anything. I just want to watch a movie and just do a little self-care and take some downtime. That's usually how I experience Mars and Neptune coming together. So there's a lot that goes into this energy. We still have several planets in the sign of Aries. So Venus and Chiron coming together. So more relationship stuff probably coming to the surface for analyzing, transmuting, and healing and alchemizing. Mercury, like I said, still retrograde in Aries also. So there's a lot still happening here with our path forward through all of this, because the North Node is still involved in getting contact from the personal planets, Mercury in particular. When the retrograde's over on the 25th, Mercury will kind of stand still for a little while right next to the North Node. So as we've covered, North Node is our path forward. It's soul's growth. And Aries is just all about our independence. Aries is all about our sovereignty and our life spark. We talked about this in the last Astro-Weather Check when we covered the eclipse, and I'll put a link to that as well. So, like I said, this full moon closes out eclipse season. So we've had all of this. The first half of this year we're almost halfway through the year, but since January, really since Pluto shifted, it's been super, super, super intense. And I also want to mention, if you were born late of 83, like December 83 through 85, then you are getting a very clear preview of what your Pluto square is going to be all about, because you were born with Pluto in the early degrees of Scorpio. If you were born in the mid-80s, especially if you're born with your nodes in Taurus and Scorpio, South Node in Scorpio, North Node in Taurus, this full moon is going to be extremely activating for you. Pay very close attention to what's been happening through this eclipse season, what's been happening in your life since January 20th in particular, and what's come to the surface, and what's forcing you to act in some way that is your own personal transformation and rebirth process. This full moon is going to be extremely activating for you, not only because it's your Pluto square or the preview of your Pluto square, but it's going to activate your nodes also, if you have your nodes in the early degrees of Taurus and Scorpio, because the full moon is going to be shining its light right on them too, with the square with Pluto. So, like I said, 2 ways to work through this. One, dive deeply into it. This the Scorpio full moon is also known as Wesak. Wesak, I think I'm pronouncing that right. When the Buddha, it's very much related to Buddha. Buddha was said to be born and to have transitioned back to spirit under the energy of a Scorpio full moon. So this is a good opportunity to dive in deeply to that, to discover your inner Buddha, which is actually a blog post I wrote several years ago, which I will link also to this in the episode notes. Dive deeply into it. That's why I picked the Pink Lotus, because it relates directly to the Buddha and spirituality and rebirth and transformation. My astrology teacher always called Pluto a Buddha incognito. So the Pluto energy is always super intense, but there's great opportunity to really dive deeply into your own personal transformation. I started season 4. I did the intro episode last Friday for the Becoming Chiron podcast, and I'll link to that also. And this whole theme for this season is going to be the Plutonic process. So great opportunity here to work with it. Great opportunity here. The whole season's going to be about feeling through all the different vibrations of emotion and then choosing the higher vibration of the emotion and learning how to transmute and alchemize it into something that contributes to our own growth, rebirth, personal growth, transformation. So that is what we're diving deeply into in season 4, Becoming Chiron. I'm going to pick one emotion per episode, and we'll just go really deeply into it. And I have some ideas brewing already about what that first one's going to be. So I shared a lot about Pluto in the intro episode that I just did. So I'll link to that. So if you want to review the Plutonic process, as I'm calling it, you can go there for more information about what I've already covered regarding Pluto. And also, if that is just feeling too much, like this can all just be a little too much right now, especially with the eclipse season and everything that's been asking of us. If you need a little bit of a rest from all of it, just to catch your breath and take a break. On the other side of a T-square, we have nothing usually. So that is always the opportunity to turn the pressure valve to a little bit of a release. So if it's all just feeling too much and you don't want to alchemize anything else and you don't want to feel anything else and you just want to not escape, but just get some kind of relief from all of the energies and the intensity, the other side of this is Leo. So maybe you throw yourself into a creative project. That is a good way to self-soothe or just do something or move the energy in a different way under the intensity of the full moon that's coming. And just know that it's culminating now. We're getting into that waxing gibbous phase. So it's going to be intense for the few days leading up to it, especially with Jupiter Uranus coming together tomorrow, and then a few days on the other side of the full moon. So pretty much now to the end of next week. Do something creative. Maybe if you're into acting or something, if there's like a local theater group or a play or just something where you can just move the energy through your body, that's another way to feel it out and just move it. Like Leo is a fire sign, so fire moves up and out. So those are my 2 guidance points for moving through the energy, the 2 different ways that it will probably feel for everybody, especially, like I said, if you are an 83 through 84-5 baby. And then, like I said, if your nodes are in Taurus and Scorpio in particular, so late 85 through early 86, more on the later side there, because your nodes will be in the early degrees of Taurus and Scorpio. So super activating for you. You're probably going to feel this more intensely than most people. So yeah, that's our full moon. So that's how to work with it. And then also, like I said, if you set any intentions for the Scorpio new moon back in November, just reflect back on that, what's culminating, what's kind of come to fruition. And if there is something that hasn't, time to release. Full moons are times for release. So that is our Jupiter, Uranus, and our full moon. I'll cover a couple things I just wanted to cover since I won't be with you until May at this point for Astro-Weather Check wise. The Mars Neptune will come together exactly on the 28th. So just be mindful of your energy around that time. And then we have 2 shifts before the end of the month with Mars and Venus. Venus will shift into Taurus on the 29th of April. Like I said, the last Astro-Weather Check, Venus is now invisible on the journey on the opposite side of the sun. So I shared how I usually feel that it's just like a fleeting thing. If you have important parts of your chart ruled by Venus, when Venus is invisible, it can feel like you're just a little bit lost. That's how I personally experience it. So just be mindful of that. And we won't see Venus again until the reemergence in the evening sky once that transit is complete. So yeah, Venus will come back again in several months, and then we'll be able to see Venus again in the evening sky. And then on April 30th, Mars shifts into Aries. So Mars will get its fire back. That might feel a little bit better by the end of the month once we move through all of the intense energies of the full moon. And just dive into that watery element. We got a lot of water with Saturn, Neptune, and Mars and Pisces, and then the full moon happening in Scorpio. So perfect time to dive into that emotion process if you choose to. And like I said, if not, do something creative. So last thing I want to do, as I said, we have the full moon closing out the first eclipse season of this year. And it definitely lived up to everything everyone said about it being super intense. I can relate. I did get to go, as I'm shuffling, I'll just share this real quick. I did get to go experience totality for the first time in my life in Syracuse, New York. And I am not quite ready to share that experience. I will, I promise, at some point. But it's a one and done for me. Never again. I understand why eclipses were considered sacred and why historic cultures spent the time inside, fasting, covering food, being in water. Like I'll share all of it. My close friends and family know about the experience at this point, but I'm not quite ready to share it with all of you just yet, but I will because I think it's really important. And this whole thing is all about the lived experience of astrology anyway. So yeah, it was intense. It was really, really intense. So I will share that. But the card that flew out for closing for today, the water dragon, of course. And I have noticed some dragon clouds in the sky this week. So they're definitely there. They're definitely still swirling and helping us navigate and integrate at this point. So our water dragon card helps you flow easily around obstacles. Christ's light and love are flowing. Develop your psychic abilities. Go with the flow. So that's pretty cool. Love that. That's so perfect for this energy. And I'll read to you all from the book for this, just to get a little bit more insight. And if you're interested in dragons, I'll also put a link to the class that Jess and I taught the second eclipse season last year in November. We taught Harnessing the Power of Your Dragons. So I'll put a link to that. That is now available in our downloadable classes library for half price what it was when we taught it. And then Jess is also offering a new dragon orgone piece, baby dragons. So I'll put a link to those as well. That's a really cool way to just have your personal dragon's energy, which she channels into an orgone piece. So some form to that, which is really helpful. I have 2 of them and I love them very, very much. So let's see here, water dragon. And we covered the different elements and different dragons. Like we taught a lot about dragons from Diana Cooper's work, which is also who wrote this oracle deck. So definitely material that is relevant still right now. And if you want to learn about it more, we have that available, like I said. So the water dragon is one of the 4th dimensional dragons. And let's see what Diana says about the water dragon in particular. And then we'll close out for today. Okay, so just a reminder, helps you flow easily around obstacles. See how it's sort of around this pillar here, which is pretty cool. Christ light and love are flowing. Develop your psychic abilities. Go with the flow. Perfect for Scorpio energy. Fourth dimensional water dragons are a soft green color and very beautiful. They undulate with the flow around them and help everything to move forward with grace and tranquility. Their service work is to maintain the constant movement of Christ's light in the waters of our planet. They also help us develop our psychic abilities and intuition. Guidance. The message the elemental water dragons are bringing you is to flow around your challenges with loving intent. If you ask them, they will help you look for an easy way to circumnavigate your challenges and deal with people lovingly. To enable this to happen, they will help you to develop your intuition and psychic abilities by touching your third eye and allowing the petals of the psychic center to open. When you listen to your inner wisdom and trust that the water dragons will guide you, the course of your life will run more smoothly. Ask them to cleanse the cells of your body, for this will enable you to shine your light even more brightly. Then your guidance is to relax so that they can access your energy fields and pour the golden Christ light of pure unconditional love into them. Consciously absorb this golden Christ light and flow with it. This will bring you love, wisdom, and healing, and enable you to travel effortlessly on your ascension path. It will also allow you to direct and help others with calm and integrity. So, beautiful closeout for today. Perfect. Love it. So, that's it in a nutshell. It's a lot, I know, for your Astro-Weather Check today. This will be a bonus episode in the Becoming Chiron podcast feed and available in video format, like I said, on Spotify and also our Sea Goddess YouTube. And like I said, I'll be back with you again for another Astro-Weather Check around the Taurus new moon next month. And probably somewhere in between, I'll be doing the first episode of season 4 of Becoming Chiron. So till next time, much love to you all. Transmute, 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 alchemize. And if you don't want to, if it's too much, do something creative. Bye.